Yes, sir. Morning, Kitsuki-san, Babu-san, Dr. Krishnakumar, Ms. Manjunatha, my dear distinguished friends and professors and students and all of you who have joined on behalf of OISCA South India Chapter. I am privileged to welcome all of you to this particular webinar. As you are aware, 11th of December has been designated as the International Day for Mountains, International Mountain Day. And this year, the United Nations has chosen sustainable mountain ecosystems and tourism as the theme. And we are very happy that as OISCA, we are organizing today's webinar on the same theme, sustainable mountain ecosystems and tourism. And we are delighted to see that we have academicians, practitioners, and OISCA dignitaries and professors from various colleges and others joining us, which gives me the confidence that climate, weather, ecosystems, and whatever issues that we are facing, like global warming, all of them are indeed of great concern to not only OISCA, but to many. And we hope that through this webinar, we will be able to debate and bring forth ideas that will promote, number one, awareness, number two, a conscious and responsible use of mountain ecosystems for sustainable development and tourism. So saying, may I just give a short introductory brief? We know, we are all aware that mountains cover 24% of the Earth's land surface. They are home to 12% of the world's population, and we are 7 billion plus. And another 14% of the world's population reside in their immediate proximity. A further 40% live adjacent or very close to mountain areas and are benefited from mountain resources in more than one ways. Well over half the global population depends on the mountain systems or the ecosystems related to the mountain environment for a wide range of goods and services, including water, food, hydroelectricity, timber, biodiversity, maintenance, and mineral resources, besides availing opportunities for recreation and spiritual renewal. Up to 80% of the planet's fresh surface water comes from the mountains. Hence, mountains are very significant to humans in a variety of ways. Mountains are, however, fragile resource zones and are highly susceptible to both natural forces and anthropogenic factors. Only about 3% of the land ranked as highly suitable for rain-fed agriculture is within the mountains, highlighting the restricted livelihood opportunities to many mountain people. Further, it is difficult. The difficult access to the mountains, coupled with socio-economic and political marginalization, often compounds the problems. Studies across the globe have found that the health of the world's mountains is in dire need of relief from modern anthropogenic activities that are causing lasting environmental damage and human insecurities. Pressure from tourism, development, pollution, deforestation, climate change, and other forces are permanently eroding the landscape of many mountain ranges, with serious implications for the society. Some of the major consequences of these processes include water shortages and increased natural disasters such as landslides, avalanches, catastrophic flooding, soil erosion, and loss of genetic diversity, armed conflicts, wildfires, high winds, and extremes of temperature and radiation, among others. India has nearly 9% of its population, some 115 million people, who live in the mountains or mountainous regions. Out of 1,45,600 villages in scheduled areas, that is mountainous areas, 82,500 are home to 75 to 100% of the scheduled tribes. Out of 115 million, over 32% are youth in the age group of 15 to 24. These communities in mountain regions face unique challenges, including a fragile ecology, natural disasters, and long distances to markets, educational facilities, healthcare, as well as high rate of unemployment. Tourism brings benefits and potentially novel risks also. We know that these challenges pose a threat to traditional ecological knowledge, history, and narratives valuing landscape and social relationships. Other challenges on account of interaction with, shall we say, the plains people like you and me, include poaching, wildlife smuggling, mental illness, drug use, and alcoholism. High rates of environmental change and rapid economic and social changes are undermining the ability of the mountain ecosystems to provide critical goods and services necessary for the well-being of mountains as well as the lowland communities. We are fortunate today to have eminent speakers with immense theoretical and hands-on expertise to challenge our minds as to understanding the issues surrounding mountain ecology and to provide us with the thoughts that could possibly help us bring about important changes. It is my privilege now to introduce and invite our distinguished speakers and request them to share their perspectives. I will start with Dr. Krishnakumar, Indian Forest Service Officer, retired. Dr. Krishnakumar commenced his career as an ornithologist with the Bombay Natural History Museum in 1981. His love for nature eventually took him to the Indian Forest Service, in which he served for more than 35 years. During this illustrious service, among his other career appointments, he served as Director of Aringaranna Zoological Park, Chennai, Director of the Institute of Forest Genetics and Tree Breeding, Coimbatore, and eventually retired as the Head of Forest Force of the Government of Tamil Nadu. He retired in the rank of the Principal Chief Conservator of Forests. Post-retirement, he worked as chairman. Of the Third State Environment Impact Assessment Authority, Tamil Nadu. He is also the consultant to the Kerala Forest Research Institute. He has been part of intergovernmental committees and institutions and has traveled widely to many countries, including the Southeast Asian region, China, and Geneva. He has authored 23 research papers and 24 books or book chapters in the scientific domain. He has also presented scientific papers in 62 national and international conferences. His association with OISCA International is equally illustrious. He served as the president of Tamil Nadu chapter in 2018 and 19. In December 2019, he was instrumental in organizing an international webinar on the theme Partnership and Ownership Building for Sustainable Development at Guru Nanak College, Chennai. Last year, he assumed the mantle of the President, South India chapter. It is my pleasure to invite this scholar forester to deliver the presidential address. Dr. KK, please.
Thank you, Dr. Srini, for that very elaborate introduction. Dr. Srini, in fact, let me congratulate you for this initiative to call us all today on this platform, discussing creating awareness about mountain ecosystems, which is the need of the hour. 2002, I remember Forest Department celebrated and the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change celebrated the Mountain Day in a very big way all over the country. Mr. Kitsuki-san, Dr. Manjunatha, AFS, Additional Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, the Director of the Forest College, Mr. Alok Sinha, our dear Babu-san, Mr. Sukumar, Dr. Srinivasan, Madam PRAKRUTHI Warrior, Mr. Bhaskar, very many dignitaries, professors, students from the Agricultural University and from the Defense Academy and all others present. It's a wonderful morning and it's nice to meet all of you. Dr. Srinivasan has elaborated before us the importance of mountain ecosystem, where we stand as far as the mountain ecosystems are, what are the threats and what are the challenges. Yet, I may add nothing but a few points that come to my mind. People like me and Manjunatha, who is our guest today, we've all worked for almost 35 years in the forest department, and 50% of our time we've spent in the mountains, may it be the Western Ghats, the Eastern Ghats, or some exposure to the Himalayan ecosystems. We all know that mountains play a very important role for the reasons illustrated, and that's how this year, 2021, has been declared rightly by the UN as the mountain ecosystem year with sustainable tourism as the emphasis. Last year, the emphasis was on mountain biodiversity. Mountains become all the more important. There are national days celebrated for mountain. Our Kitsuki-san will agree with me that Japan has so much of mountains ecosystems. And when we talk of Mountain Fuji, which you've learned in geography and history, Mountain Kita, Hotaka, Yari, Tate, Haku, they're all very active volcanic mountains and also play a very important role in the livelihoods. So each mountain, may it be the Carpathians, may it be the Alps, may it be the Western Ghats, the Himalayas, they're all unique ecosystems with their own problems, challenges, livelihoods, and also other security provided. Mountains, I need not tell you today, becomes all the more important because of the water security provided, the wood security provided, the food security, and most importantly, when you talk of climate mitigation, I think mountains are very important. The vegetation that it holds, all that photosynthesis that is happening through the vegetative systems. If these vegetative systems are not there, probably we'll end up with no food at all. The agriculture, the horticulture, the floriculture, the horticulture, all that is happening today in the mountain ecosystems provides us so much of security, the livelihood security that we talk of. Now, the non-timber forest products, the timber that it produces, that is how rightly it is said. The life in the lowlands is dependent very much on the health of the mountain ecosystems. Therefore, the economic importance, the ecological significance, the hydrological significance, the social significance are all important for every student and adult to understand. So much of the mountain ecosystem, almost 50% of the world's biodiversity is today located in these mountains. Many of the important hotspots that we call, like the Western Ghats, are all in the mountain ecosystems. But yet, what is really happening is the threat that we see to the mountains every day. We have been maintaining what are called as ecological stations or long-term monitoring stations in many of the mountains just to see the changes that are happening to the forest types across the country. So there are what are called as permanent preservation plots, and through that, for a length of time, we've been studying the changes that are happening to the vegetation. And it is, let me tell you, our early results are sometimes very alarming. There are noticeable changes in the insect fauna that are seen in the mountain ecosystem, the birds moving up because of climate change, habitat changes that are taking place, and the innumerable other threats that are happening to the mountains. It is told, and it is also seen obviously through these long-term monitoring stations, that there are vegetative changes because of the land use changes that are happening. Therefore, the threats that I see on one side, while agriculture, floriculture, horticulture, industries are important, but all of them in excess in the mountain ecosystems are real threat, so that today with also tourism being added can also cause a lot of issues. So therefore, the roads, the new infrastructure that is coming up, the encroachments that are happening in the mountains, the fragmentation of the forest, the plantations, may it be tea, coffee, cardamom, all these plantations are adding up to what is called as threat to the biodiversity, the species composition in the natural forest ecosystems, the sholas, the grasslands, the evergreen forests, the semi-evergreen forests are all rapidly changing. The nutrient cycles are changing. The water imbalances and the water cycles on which the hills are dependent, they are all changing. The soil quality in the mountain ecosystem is changing because of the rapid erosions. Fresh water on which we all depend, all comes from the mountains. There will be no plains, no life for us without these mountains. Of course, you go to the Himalayas, the snow-clad mountains, and the snow-clad tourism itself becomes so very important. Therefore, hydrogeological cycles are also dependent on these mountains. But yet, today, we are in an era of commodification. We are in an era of excessive consumption. We are in an era of consumerism. These three C's, the commodification, the consumption, and the commercialization with consumerism, is really threatening mountain ecosystems. We know the way what is really happening. We have seen the innumerable film shootings. Fine, all that is needed. Happiness is important. But then anything that causes rapid change to ecosystems, one has to be aware of. The future generations particularly should know the importance. We are all in the plains and we think everything is happy out in the mountains because we see mountains green. But that is really not what is desirable. There are many changes that are happening. Today, adventurous tourism is becoming a very big thing. So solid waste management is becoming a serious issue in the mountains. Waste management, unethical consumption, transportation, roads, all these, and buildings, new buildings that are coming up, the innumerable resorts that are coming up. How do we really balance ecology with ecosystems? Ecology and economic development in the hills is something that all of us today have to ponder. There is time for tremendous balance of both ecology and economy in the hills. So what really we require is looking up for sustainable mountain governance, sustainable mountain management, therefore creating right amount of awareness, healthy tourism, healthy industry, healthy horticulture, healthy living up in the mountains is very important for healthy well-being in the plains. This is the communication that we need to drive home today, particularly to the youth. With these initial comments, I thank Dr. Srini for this wonderful opportunity. It's nice that OISCA South India has taken this lead to celebrate this important day. OISCA never misses out, you all know, friends, Organization for Industrial, Spiritual, Cultural Advancement is a Japanese organization. We are into environmental conservation, environmental awareness creation, particularly focusing on youth, the future generation of India. Today, I think we have rightly sat here to discuss such an important issue, and we thank Dr. Babu-san, Mr. Babu-san, Srini, and very importantly, Fumio Kitsuki-san. His presence here shows the importance that the world and the country is making on the mountain ecosystems. Thank you for this excellent opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. KK. Ladies and gentlemen, I take the liberty of addressing him as Dr. KK because I have known him for a very long time. Yeah, please allow me to use that expression. Thank you, Dr. KK. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Sri TV Manjunatha, IFS, Additional Principal Chief Conservator of Forests and Director of Tamil Nadu Forest Academy, Coimbatore. Sri Manjunatha commenced his career in the University of Agricultural Sciences, Dharwad in 1988. His passion for nature led him to join the Indian Forest Service in 1993. He has held various and important career assignments in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. During his illustrious service of 3 decades, Sri Manjunatha has retrieved hundreds of hectares of pristine forest lands containing sandalwood, redwood, and such other valuable species from encroachment and illegal felling. His stellar efforts resulted in restoring crores worth of forest lands to proper care. He also, I must mention, retrieved and revived several water bodies and wetlands inside the forest and in the adjoining areas, which helped in the conservation of wetland ecosystems. He was instrumental in replanting 465 adult trees. I think it was the first, if I'm not mistaken, in the country. 465 adult trees in Gadag division during a highway restoration work. As the Secretary, Tamil Nadu Biodiversity Board, he diligently expanded the constitution of BMCs and the preparation of PBRs in 13,604 local bodies of the state in record time, earning the praise from the National Green Tribunal. He is a green guru, I must say, intensely interacting with students, teachers, and villagers, spreading awareness on sustainable ecosystems through forestry. He has presented papers and issues in many national and international conferences and forums. He is part of several government committees on technical planting activities, forest protection, and evaluation. It is my pleasure now to invite Sri Manjunatha IFS to deliver his inaugural address. Manjunatha sir.
Vanakkam, namaskar to everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Srinivasan, for this elaborate and nicely articulated introduction. Um, Thank you very much, Dr. Krishnakumar, sir, for making me part of this wonderful event. Good morning to all the dignitaries and the esteemed participants of this event. I wanted to speak on certain aspects, but Dr. Srinivasan as well as Dr. Krishnakumar sir have already covered whatever I wanted to say. But still, as a field officer, as sir said already, we have seen certain things, good and bad, firsthand, seeing many impacts of our inadvertent or knowingly committing certain mistakes in the wilderness areas. Before I start discussing with my PPT slides, I would like to pay my tributes to our departed great general who whom we lost along with him and another 12 of us, 12 of them, that too in the hills again. It pains for all of us to lose such a illustrious general. His words I want to quote here. In one of his speeches, he said, when somebody asked him to provide employment or job in military, he said, no, military doesn't provide jobs. Military provides responsibilities. So those who come to military for looking for jobs, you will not find it there. You have to sacrifice. You have to be part of the nation, and then you have to sacrifice your personal pleasure also, personal comforts also. So here, I believe that this group, particularly the initiative taken by OISCA under the leadership of Dr. Krishnakumar sir and Dr. Srinivasan, I am sure all the participants who are listening to this do have certain extra element of commitment apart from the walks of life that we are into. So it needs an extra effort, extra commitment, extra involvement in protecting the environment or the nature that we are using it, whether it is in right spirit or not, I don't know. We'll, in the course of discussion, we'll see. I'd like to share some of my slides here. I'll just see. Can you see this?
So it's
Hello?
coming up. Yes, visible, visible.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay, I'd like to start with saying that, as already mentioned, mountains become 25% of the Earth's land area. They play a very important role in carbon storage and water cycling. The world's major rivers originate from the mountains due to high rainfall and orographic lifting. High rainfall, cool temperatures, the unique environment or the ambience or the microclimate that is created by these mountains help in more water resources creation, particularly in the low-lying arid and semi-arid areas. And that's why these mountains are also called as water towers. And varied biogeochemical environment, slope, elevation aspects, all these influence mountain water. Mountain wetlands are also usually small in size when compared to the mainland plain wetlands. And depending upon the hydrology, they are either forested or marshy in nature. And we have, as all of us know, there are seven major mountain ranges in India, which are more than 100,000 meters elevation I have chosen. As we know that Himalayan range is the one which is the biggest one. Karakoram Pir Panjal range in the northern tip near Kashmir. Then eastern Purvanchal range, Satpura and Vindhya range. Aravalli range, which is one of the oldest, said to be about 350 million years old. And of course, our own Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. And all of us know what are the values of these mountain ranges. Geohydrological value is one, biodiversity is one, cultural and religious value which we have not given much importance. As you know that a majority of our major temples, major deities, they are sitting in the mountains in entire country, and lakhs of people visit these places every year on certain specific occasions. Otherwise, also throughout the year, there is flow of deities in the form of cultural tourism or religious tourism. Aesthetic value is one where we attract a lot of tourists in the form of eco-tourists or nature trails. Geopolitical strategic value is one another important aspect which these mountains provide to our national security. This is one important aspect. Wherever we have strategic locations, we have mountains there dividing us between the states or between the countries. Then, as rightly pointed out by my previous speakers, forests they provide unique biodiversity, particularly in the mountain area. Rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, and swamps are also part of these mountains. Rocks and minerals. This is very important. This is causing more overuse or abuse, you can say, to certain extent, where extraction of rocks and minerals in the form of commercialization. Cold deserts are also parts of these mountains, which provide a very unique and special habitats, which harbor connected flora and fauna, which we cannot find elsewhere. Meadows and grasslands are also part of this ecosystem. What are the threats as we see from our own personal interaction or personal visitations? Human induced pollution in the name of tourism and habitation, uh, rightly pointed out, over use of these resources, encroachments, and unscientific expansion of buildings not matching with the ambience, not required also. To that extent, we have polluted our areas. Then climate change and eutrophication of the water bodies. Eutrophication is another biggest issue which is not seen, but it's happening. Deforestation, of course, loss of local species we are witnessing already, and invasive species which are gaining access to these otherwise inviolate or non accessible areas because of our own movements, because of the agents whom we are permitting knowingly or unknowingly into these wilderness areas. Developmental works, of course, dams, roads, cultivation. Cultivation is also expanding in these mountain areas to a larger extent because of the pressure on the farmers or the cultivators in the form of plantations or even agriculture, olericulture, or even floriculture, and the pomological cultivations. A deficit in understanding, vision, and management. This point I would like to underline, because all the managers or the so-called custodians of these areas, including the forest department, we have a deficiency in understanding their value, their system, their composition, their behavior, and their response to our initiatives or interventions. So there is no long-term vision in our hand. We just do it on ad hoc system, and the management is going nowhere, and there is panic already seen in many aspects. What are the mechanisms that we can look at in the recent near future? We can avoid these fragile and inviolate areas, which we feel that once disturbed will never come back to their original position. Then limited and regulated activities in lesser fragile areas can be permitted. And in the name of tourism, though we call it as responsible tourism, we see less of responsibility and sensibility in these tourists. Majority of them come there just like that, without understanding the value of the place, value of the inhabitants, natural inhabitants of these habitats. We can also think of going for rotational use of these areas so that we give them some space for recuperation or rejuvenation. Involve the locals. This is where we lose the game, because when we bring somebody from outside who have no knowledge of the local values, will spoil the entire thing, and they'll be working on a commercial scale. Involve the locals, they'll be working with a lot of involvement, attachment, and understand the value of the space that they are using. Then periodical evaluation of the ecosystem's response is also necessary. As Krishnakumar sir rightly pointed out, we have certain research stations located at all the important locations, but yet how much of introspection or evaluation or auditing is taking place, and how we are putting those reports into practical use in addressing these problems should also be looked into, and to be taken in right spirit also. I wish to close my presentation with these slides. Would like to take any questions if you have. And I always feel as a forest officer, as a field officer, that we have seen a lot of disturbances in the form of the development, the ecotourism, or even the nature tourism by both government agencies and non-government agencies. We have to have a common understanding between us. Yes, sir rightly pointed out, we cannot close all the areas. Closing and shutting is not a solution. We have to have a certain mid path wherein we can allow the people. We have to identify the right people to enter into our areas. How do we do it? I leave it to you all, because I have seen myself, even sir has seen, as a director of under Arinyar Anna Zoological Park, almost 95% of the visitors are not interested in seeing the animals. They are all a burden to us. They are all a liability. They do more damage than good to the animals and also to the system that we operate. See, similarly, zoo is something where we can rectify certain defects, or the undoing can be done for what has been done. But in natural areas, it is very, very difficult to undo certain things which we have already done, particularly the slopey areas, fragile areas, and the snow peaks in the northern Himalayas. I wish this seminar, or the rightful thinking which has been initiated by OISCA, by Dr. Srinivasan and Dr. Krishnakumar sir, will provide certain light to us. And also, whenever such discussions happen with all the esteemed interested people, please give us recommendations and send it to all the managers. Some of them will definitely use, because it should not stop with your own reporting and publishing in certain journals. Yes, I do understand they do have value, but it should reach the hands of the field operators. And I, as a manager, I openly admit that I lack certain scientific inputs whenever some research is conducted by esteemed institutions. I'm sorry, I may be wrong, but I do admit it. It is my fault also, because it is my responsibility to access these reports. But yet, it is your responsibility also to make me read these things. If that is done from both of us, I think we can do a lot more better on the field and do good to all those members who cannot speak for themselves and who do not have voting rights. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Manjunatha sir. Actually, I will just highlight only 2 points from your talk, because you already said, communicated so crystal clear to everyone. The first thing that you have emphasized on, that we must feel responsible for the environment, ecosystems, and non-human, habitats of those environments. I fully endorse that point, and I'm sure all of us agree with you. The second point, which as a freelance academician, which is close to my heart, and I'm feeling so happy about it, is that you said, please share whatever recommendations or thoughts that come with people like you, like others who are working on those issues, and who are in a position to probably influence policy on that dimension. So we will be very happy to do so. Apart from sharing a recording, I'm expecting a couple of papers also. I'll be more than glad to share it with you. Since you're in Coimbatore, perhaps personally. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sir.
please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, it's now my privilege to introduce and welcome our Honorable Kitsuki San. And I'm not sure if I should actually give him an introduction because I sincerely feel that Kitsuki-san personifies the spirit of OISCA. So I think it would be right for me to just give you a short glimpse on OISCA so you will know that what Kitsuki-san represents and what he is and what he means to all of us. So please allow me to give a small presentation, just about 5-6 slides about OISCA. I hope you can see the slides. Can you see the slides, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. The Organization for Industrial and Spiritual and Cultural Advancement, OISCA, is having its headquarters in Tokyo. And in the South India, we have our headquarters in Calicut. OISCA is an international and, of course, through SIC, a national NGO committed to a sustainable world. What are the objectives of OISCA? OISCA is committed and dedicated to promoting international cooperation in 3 dimensions. Through industrial engagement, that is for the enhancement of knowledge, technical and managerial skills, and the empowerment and resilience of all communities. 2, through spiritual foundation for the inspiration and deepening of the sense of gratitude for the grace of the universe in the provision of the essentials for all life forms. And 3, through cultural involvement for the respect for the diversity of cultures, including time-honored traditions that have been fostered through generations of peoples. OISCA's vision is this. The organization holds the perspective that the universe is the source of all life and envisions a world where all people harmoniously coexist by transcending differences and work together to protect and nurture the ecological basis of all life on Earth. So what are its missions? OISCA International serves humanity through environmentally, socially, culturally, and economically sustainable development. To accomplish this, the organization advocates and implements projects and programs in capacity development, especially of young people, environmental education, rural development, and conservation, rehabilitation of forests and marine resources. So what does OISCA do as part of this mission? So OISCA has 3 major programs or 4 major programs. The first amongst them is the Children's Forest Program through a vast network in so many countries, 64 countries to be precise. OISCA works with school children in promoting their awareness and encouraging them to undertake forestry. And I'm happy to tell you that in Kerala, 150 colleges and 1,500 schools are part of OISCA program. I'm only talking about India. And you will see that we have planted more than 1 crore 76 lakh trees all over the country. So, Children's Forest Program is one of the flagship programs of the OISCA. Capacity building program, which I mentioned earlier, again, being worked in so many countries across the world, you can see in this map, is working through communities in building their skills and necessary knowledge to use environment in a responsible and sustainable manner. That is capacity building programs. Then we have environmental conservation programs, which again are in all these countries, which are in various colors in the map in front of you. Okay, this conservation program again is a huge, I will say, a flagship program of the OISCA. Sustainable Community Development Program, working with communities and nature so that they learn to use and they use it responsibility, not only the communities that are living in those exclusive environment, but also others. Okay, so these are the 4 flagship programs of the OISCA. Some of the highlights I have just given here. OISCA International was established in 1961 at Tokyo, Japan. Works in consultative capacity with UNESCO. The South India chapter was established in 1987. Our dear Babu-san is the founder, father, philosopher of this SIC. SIC has over 5,000 members, 107 chapters in Kerala, and in Kerala alone has Save Green clubs, as I mentioned, in 150 colleges and 1,500 schools. Entirely voluntary. The organization is entirely voluntary and is driven by visionary commitment to a sustainable world where all humans live in complete spiritual harmony with nature and with each other. So saying it, I think I must now say that our dear Kitsuki-san actually represents the true spirit of OISCA. Kitsuki-san, do I have your permission to play the video before you speak? Yeah, thank you so much. I have a small recorded this thing of Kitsuki-san for this special occasion. So let me just play that video for you.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in a significant event to observe International Mountain Day. Today, many people love climbing mountains. All of Japan's primary islands have mountain ranges running through them. Around 70% of the landmass is mountainous, and activities such as hiking and skiing are popular. Mount Fuji is the tallest mountain in Japan, one of the nation's 3 holy mountains, and one of the most recognizable symbols of Japan. Japan has many prominent peaks. Some of them are active volcanoes. Traditionally, Japanese people generally revere mountains as sacred. Even today, when people go mountaineering, they remind themselves of the sacredness of the mountains they climb. I think similar traditions prevail in many countries. I believe that such a tradition developed because of the solid spiritual capability of the people in ancient times. The United Nations highlighted mountain tourism this year. Tourism is essential for many people in tourist spots, including the mountains. I understand that the people who engage in mountain tourism have a hard time today due to the pandemic. I pray for their well-being with the pandemic subsiding soon. Though tourism is essential, we need to strengthen spiritual traditions connected to mountains. Enhancing spirituality and the thriving tourism industry are compatible. They can go side by side. If you respect mountains, you become careful not to litter others or places you visit in mountains. Spiritual culture to respect mountains could enhance the behaviors to protect mountain tourism resources. Mount Fuji is a sacred mountain designated a World Cultural Heritage Site. It has a long-standing spiritual tradition. It has erupted many times and formed the beautiful shape that we see today. The eruption destroyed properties and perished many lives in history. So the mountain was an awe-inspiring object and worshipped and loved by people. Many persons engaged in performing religious austerities pursued enlightenment. They made an ascent of Mount Fuji, chanting, "Oh, may I be purified, may there be fine weather up on the mountain top." And they walked up to the peak. At the summit, they offered a special prayer for the spirit of the mountain. Mountaineering could be dangerous. I'm sure that strengthening your spirituality would lead to respect for mountains, exemplary behavior, prudence, restraint, and discretion to escape the danger you might face in mountaineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitsuki-san, for that message. Now you're on screen. Please share your thoughts too.
Did you understand what I wanted to say? I think this is very closely connected with the idea of OISCA. Actually, I believe that many members in South India understand this kind of values that we hold and uphold in order to maintain, in order to conserve nature, or mountaineering should be safer. And I think this part is very important, especially for the education of young people. I mean, respect and love for the mountains. That is the most key, foundation to, of course, to improve the ecological assets of mountains and tourism industries, or safer tourism in the mountains. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitsuki-san. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will commence the webinar program. I request you to keep your audio muted, unless you are speaking. I invite Dr. Krishnakumar to chair this session. Dr. Krishnakumar may invite the presenters one by one as per the program after a brief introductory note from himself. Dr. KK, please.
Thank you, Dr. Srini. Thank you, Dr. Kitsuki-san, for that wonderful thought of yours. We have received many papers, but 4 important topics have been lined up today for discussion. All the 4 topics are being presented by very experienced scientists and the people from different walks of life who've been managing mountain ecosystems in some way or the other. We've all had an excellent outline by Mr. Manjunatha, who also had a tall experience handling mountain ecosystems and governance. But instead of me going into the whole thing, we will all spend more time listening to these 4 important talks lined up for the day, and also probably put more questions so that it becomes a very productive webinar. We have the first speaker, Mr. I think he's from Dr. Srini, the first speaker.
Commander Deepak, sir. Commander Deepak.
Yeah, Mr. Deepak, D. Nayak, and Dr. Rekha Soumya. Their topic is using catchment area treatment plans of hydroelectric projects as a tool for funding conservation of ecology, indigenous knowledge, and promotion of sustainable ecotourism for enhanced livelihood. A study of CAT plants on Satluj and Bias in Himachal Pradesh. I now invite Dr. Deepak Nayak and Dr. Rekha Soumya to make their presentations. Probably all the discussions can be had at the end of the 4 sessions, I think so, and then probably it will be more meaningful. Straight away to you. Thank you. Dr. Deepak Nayak.
Commander Deepak, are you online? Or Dr. Soumya? To join with Dr. KK, I suggest you go on to the next person.
Right.
In the meantime, we will wait for them to reach.
The second topic is again a very important topic, exploring discovery trails in the Western Ghats, thinking conservation with ecotourism. We have a very experienced person, Dipankar Ghose, the founder of PRAKRUTHI, Eco Care Group, Outward Bound Experimental Learning Center, Chennai, to talk to us. I know personally that Mr. Dipankar has long experience handling ecotourism, taking out students, and
Dr. Kiki, you're muted.
Can I?
sorry. This topic again becomes very important. The second topic, exploring discovery trails in the Western Ghats, thinking conservation with ecotourism, by Mr. Dipankar Ghosh, founder PRAKRUTHI Eco Care Group, Outward Bound Experimental Learning Center. I know Dipankarji as a very experienced eco-awareness operator. He has always been talking to students, taking them out, guiding people, and most of his exposure has been on the hills, the mountain ecosystems, and it will be nice to hear him talk on exploring discovery trails and getting to know what he really has for the future. Mr. Dipankar. Mr. Dipankar? Are you muted, Mr. Dipankar?
Mr. Alok Sinha joined.
Oh. Welcome, Mr. Alok Sinha ji.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Should I continue?
Yes.
Yeah. Happy Mountain Day to all of you. It's been an honor and privilege to be invited over here. I think this is the second program of OISCA that I'm participating. I would like to, give my best wishes to the people who are organizing. Dr. Srinivasan, the OISCA Coimbatore Chapter President, Dr. Krishnakumar, the President of the South Indian Chapter, and I should consider and also inform all of you that he's sort of a mentor to me. We had known each other since 1980s. The chief guest of the program, Mr. V.T. Manjunatha, the director of the Forest Academy, and of course, the last but most importantly, the Secretary General of OISCA, Mr. Fumio Kitsuki. My introduction has already been given by the chairman of the session, Dr. Krishnakumar. I actually have been involved in ecotourism from a very, very different perception. From the aspect of experiential learning. It all started when in 1981, I was actually asked to take the responsibility of organizing a conservation program called the Sea Turtle Conservation Program, popularly known as the Turtle Walk. And at that particular period, just for 3 years, I happened to be a teacher in one of the foremost schools over here in Chennai. And I had the privilege of being the Pied Piper and taking these students out on this beach trail, okay, which was about 7 to 8 kilometers long. And you won't believe what was started in 1981. Today in 2021, it is actually, one of the foremost conservation project, and also I would say a model for ecotourism. The generation next year, which is actually carrying on, are also very well-known conservationists. In fact, they really make the forest department proud. But the things have really changed a little bit. During our time in 1981, it was more or less the effort of two big organizations called the Worldwide Fund for Nature, and the other one being the Chennai Snake Park, which was then known as the Madras Snake Park. Incidentally, I volunteered there, and that is how the organization PRAKRUTHI, of which you hear, was born. Now, currently, the Forest Department handles the conservation program, the Turtle Walk, directly under the Chief Wildlife Warden. And we have volunteers from certain organizations which are accredited to the Forest Department participating or bringing people and making them more aware, through beach combing, which starts, somewhere around those of you who are familiar with Chennai, from Besanagar, and goes all the way up to Markanam and beyond. Now, friends, when I'm going to take the subject of exploring discovery trails in Western Ghats, thinking conservation with ecotourism, actually, PRAKRUTHI, has got two faces, like saying two sides of the same coin. On one side, we are deeply involved with conservation work, And on the other side, we translate the conservation work by involving the people. So sometimes, while most often, tour operators, they get into conflict with the forest department. On the other hand, Prakruthi often gets into conflict with the tourism department. In fact, just a few days ago on December 6th, we had a big meeting of so-called operators for adventure tourism. And, there were a lot of what I would say semantic noises over there, over the uses of phrases and glossary and all those things, are trying to describe how, adventure tourism should be regulated and, how it should be promoted in these present circumstances. Let me now switch on my video presentation and share it with you. I seem to be having a little problem with this. Okay. I think, the video should not be all that important. I'll just carry on. Not the video, I mean the slide presentation. I'll just carry on with this thing.
Dipankar sir, you first open the video or the PPT on your desktop and then use the share provision.
I open the PPT, yes.
Now you use the share provision. There's a rectangular box with upward arrow on your Google Meet screen at the bottom.
Actually being a show.
Where you find the red color call sign, it will be third from there from the right.
Dot sign.
Yeah, there is a rectangular box with upward arrow.
Yes.
Just click on that.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, and now you can choose a window.
Actually, what has happened, instead of share, the cancel is actually being highlighted. You got it? So that's the problem I'm facing over here. Yes, I think now I got it.
Yeah.
No.
Share a window, and then you can select it.
Oh God. Anyhow, I'll just run through the whole thing because I shouldn't be wasting the time. You're presenting on you're presenting your screen. Let it open. I'll just run through my presentation. I've taken it more or less like, a tourist visiting, the Sahyadris the first time. So the Western Ghats is basically a north-south chain of mountains which separate the Deccan Plateau from the narrow coastal plain along the Arabian Sea in Western India. Those of you who are very familiar with the whole thing, kindly forgive me. I'm just taking it, that there might be a few people who are familiar with the name of the Western Ghats, but do not know exactly about the entire geography and the topography. It covers an area of over 1,64,280 square kilometers and stretches 1,600 kilometers. You won't believe it starts in Gujarat from Songat town, south of River Tapti and close to the Satpura range. The Ghats end at Marthuval Malay in Swamitop near Kanyakumari in Tamil Nadu at the tip of Indian Peninsula. Now, the Western Ghats runs through 6 states and 2 major union territories. In case if I tell anybody that the Western Ghats run to the Pondicherry, people will have a laugh at me. But actually, it does pass through the union territory of Pondicherry of its district Mahe. So the Western Ghat runs through Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Maharashtra, Goa and Karnataka, where it's known as Sahyadri, meaning the mountain of patience. Now, when it enters Kerala, Western Ghats is known as Saya Parvatam, and in Tamil Nadu, it is known as Nilgiri Malay. Now, there are 2 views as far as the geology of the Western Ghats is concerned. The first view says that the mountains of the Western Ghats are block mountains formed due to the downwrapping of a part of the land into the Arabian Sea. The other opinion is that the mountains of the Western Ghats are not true mountains, but a faulted edge of the Deccan Plateau. My narration is more or less on the basis of how we describe it to the people visiting, the Western Ghats, in whichever point, they've been into the tour and camp. Down warping refers to the twisting or folding of the Earth's crust downwards. Warping is an endogenous process that can include either gradual rising, up warping, or slow sinking, down warping. Down warping is the outcome of such crustal motions which can change a river's course and bed profile. The Western Ghats is roughly 6% of India's total geographical area and forms the catchment area of complex riverine drainage systems that drain almost 40% of India. Now, when I talk about riverine drainage systems, I'm talking about the catchment area, the flow. Okay, so this is the topographic region from which a stream receives runoff, thorough flow, and its saturated equivalent ground flow. The number, size, and shape of the drainage basins vary. Western Ghats are home to 30% of flora and fauna species found in India. That means endemic species. The average elevation is around 1,200 to 1,300 meters. Sahyadri is one of the 8 biodiversity hotspots in the world. It is sometimes called the Great Escarpment of India. It contains a very large proportion of the country's flora and fauna, many of which are found only in India and nowhere else in the world. The hotspot of Western Ghats is rich in biological diversity and endemism, with biosphere reserves, national parks to restrict human access, and several wildlife sanctuaries to protect specific endangered species. The Ghats perform important hydrological and watershed functions, supplying water from rivers to approximately 245 million people in the peninsular Indian states. Thus, the soil and water of this region sustain the livelihoods of millions of people. Sahyadri's high montane forest ecosystems influence the Indian monsoon weather patterns by intercepting the rain-laden monsoon winds that sweep in from the southwest during the late summer. The Ghats present one of the best examples of the monsoon system on the planet. Western Ghats today is threatened by harmful industrialization, animal poaching, climate change, even unorganized and ill-planned ecotourism of our country. Ecotourism activities are permitted in certain forest destinations. Activities in the World Heritage Sites of the Western Ghats may be streamlined after assessing the carrying capacity of the individual sites. The World Heritage Committee has asked India to initiate proactive responsible tourism management in anticipation of increased future visitation, but to ensure it remains within the capacity of the sanctuary, within the carrying capacity of the sanctuary. The Sahyadris provide a wide choice of adventure to all nature lovers like trekkers and climbers. Now, my presentation is actually to take us on the Discovery Trail in Western Ghats, where doing a holiday with experiential learning can help in conservation and crisis management. With paradigm shifts in ecotourism, utilizing the decade, which is now on the decade for ecosystem restoration over the next 10 years, based on sustainable development goals, will help to make the human connect with the great outdoors, biodiversity, and nature. Now, unfortunately, I have a very, very interesting slide over here, which I'm not able to share with you. It is called Vanaprashta. There is a leadership camps for young people trying to solve the man-animal conflict. Now, these are few examples of the types of ecotourism that we do out in the forest. In the sense, we are not a travel or a conventional tour operator. We are basically an outward bound. Outward bound means looking outwardly, trying to explore outwardly. Outward bound experiential learning center. And this particular center, shows that, where actually the people coming over there, they're able to understand the values, the wealth, the critical points, the hotspots and other things of the place they're visiting.
Dr. Dipankar, another 5 minutes, please.
Yeah, please. Now, in fact, we do a lot of programs over there with young and old. And in fact, when the Discovery Channel had a program with Narendra Modi and Akshay Kumar, etc., unfortunately, I'm not able to show you those slides, with disabled people, differently abled people, with young and old, etc. We actually do, very safe adventure, but teach them also the skill sets, in what I would call safety management, so by taking them, to cross the little rivulets, to actually how to spot the animals, how to be appreciative of the bird calls and spend time, lots of time trying to observe them, record them and shoot them in cameras. we have been doing some programs where actually we have come up with this concept called volunteer tourism. Volunteer tourism is where volunteers actually pay to come over there and they participate in what we call as the work camps. And in these work camps, they try to reinstate, okay, or they try to, restore the balance in the ecosystem. Okay, so this is the sort of a program that we are highlighting on, where actually when you're coming over there, you're contributing to something to the place which you're visiting. We also, as I've been telling you, trying to sensitize people, okay, in safety management, primarily because, as you know, many of the people visiting these forest areas, they let themselves loose, and that leads to a lot of risks of accidents. So, in fact, along with the programs in the residential camps, we try to see it's not only that they understand the jungle behavior, but also learn how to save themselves in the moment of a crisis. I think, I've been handicapped because I could not show you the slides and relate along with them. But then I hope I've expressed myself enough and more as an outward bound experiential learning center who is appreciative of the nature around. In fact, I'll just conclude with a quote, by a famous Colonel John Hunt, who was the leader of the British expedition to Everest, where Hillary and Tenzing, they climbed the mountain for the first time. Now, when he was asked, why is it that you go for these mountains? He said, because they're there. Now, this Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, the Western Ghats, the mountains are all there for us not to go and spoil them, okay, but actually to enrich the heritage of that place culturally, emotionally, and also environmentally. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that wonderful talk of yours, Mr. Dipankar. It only shows your vast experience. I think there'll be a lot of questions to you, but we leave it for the session. And I thank you again for finishing the whole thing in the time allotted, because 20 minutes is what Dr. Srini has probably timed for everyone. We'll definitely like you all to finish in 15 minutes to 16 minutes, and so that there's more room for questions by the youngsters in the group. Yeah, may I invite the next speaker now, quickly? If I do not know if our first speaker, Mr. Deepak D. Naik, is he available so that we can listen to him?
He is yet to rejoin, sir.
Right. Then we go to the next topic on mountain tourism matters. Mountain tourism matters, possibilities and prospects of tourists and sustainable rural development, by Dr. Shan, Eugene, Palakkal, Assistant Professor, Department of History, Stella Maris College. May I invite her, please? Thank you, Dr. Shan. Dr. Shan, please.
Yes, I would like to thank the organizers of the OISCA South India chapter for giving me this opportunity to voice out my thoughts on this topic, and wishing you all a happy Mountain Day today. I would also like to thank Dipankar sir, Dipankar Ghose, for giving me this, to incite in me thoughts about a lot of adventurous and eco-tourist activities. So I would like to go on to my slide.
Good morning, students.
So
Let's bow our heads in prayer.
Can I just give me 5 minutes, because I'm in college, we're having an assembly. Just 2 minutes.
Yes, Dr. Shan, your screen is visible.
One more minute.
The online payment of examination. examination.
Yes, sorry for the slight interruption. We are having exams in college, so there was that prayer. Yes, so going on to my slide, I have the second page, as all of you all can see, I hope. So mountain has always been a natural grandeur. It's called a third pole on Earth. And as our earlier speakers have told about the attractions of the world throughout history because of its natural beauty, climate, surroundings, aura, mystery, and monsoon climates, it forms a basic, a life basis for many people who live there downstream. And it is the only area, mountainous, all these regions are the only areas where there are traditional impediments like inaccessibility, remoteness, accidental terrain, but it still offers a competitive advantage to all nature lovers and eco tourist lovers out there. And these mountain system it's a hotspot. Diversity leads to development of diverse farming, productive system, traditional resource management, and diverse cultures in the mountains. In spite of all these, tourism has been visualized as the only feasible industry in this particular areas, mountainous regions, with environmental, economical, political, social, cultural, historic, and psychological dimensions. All these in one particular hotspot. And coming on to the rural communities who live here, they vary from different kinds, and they have their beliefs in supernatural forces which have made them worldwide. And tourists visiting these places, they're all with all their their lifestyle, dress, food, religion, ornaments. So their visit to these places are known worldwide, and there are wide range of ecological zones, different altitudes, having unique traditional cultures. All these provide an opportunity of wilderness, provide an opportunity for the tourists out there to come visit and enjoy the rural communities and their lifestyle. So there's always a symbiotic relationship between the rural communities, nature, ecosphere, sacred, secular environment that is prevailing there. And as Sir had mentioned, we have the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, that has a lot of people that are inhabiting here. The population is so vast, and their livelihood needs to be sustained. And in India, we have almost all these Himalayas, Western Ghats, crossing almost many states across in India. And the main source of energy is wood biomass, and that is what we need to sustain their livelihood for their growth and development. Now, there are so many prospects of tourism. Tourism is a fast growing service sector in the world, and in these mountainous regions, it gives high rise expectations for its development. Now, all of them have in different aspects of tourism. Even mountainous tourism is something that is developing out. Now, during the lockdown, there has been people cycling, people going on solo trekking, people going on hiking, because it's all out of vigor, out of adventure that people travel to these places, and it has reached even international level. So this relationship that man develops with nature and with mountains it has brought a kind of a great tourist influx into these destinations. So the result is what? A development of a sustainable activity. And we need to improve in terms of economic conditions in these areas with respect to the rural communities that stay here. So mountaineering, creation of natural parks, jungle tourism, hiking, all these have been tourism products that have emerged out of the new prospects of tourism. Impacts of tourism has always been a boon or a bane. There's always two sides of a coin. So you can see the negative impacts are too many when it comes to mountain tourism, even though people love traveling, they're enjoying nature, but the negative impacts are soil erosion. We are polluting the places, trail degradation. We have so many trails, mountain trails, nature trails, but At times, tourists do degrade the environment. There's leakage of revenue. There's loss of biodiversity, deforestation happening to have all these tree houses, construction of resorts in all these beautiful environmental places, which is actually called a smokeless industry, but now we are emanating a lot of smoke in all these eco-friendly and eco-tourist places. So people and supporters of these tourism, that they argue that there are a lot of positive impacts than the negative impact. It outweighs it, but we need to analyze these positive impact, because it sidelines negative impacts. Even though it's a boon for the survival of local people in terms of providing income for them, in terms of generating a living for these locals, the negative aspect is it causes disruption of the environment, and nobody listens to the environment unless and until there's some calamity that happens. Unless and until there's a natural phenomenon that is dangerous or a disaster to mankind, then only we try to recollect and say, okay, we need to do something. We need to reduce the diversity of recreational activities that is promoting tourism in this community. Now, there's an example in Nepal. Mountain tourism has been the source of income for the communities that stay there. But there are a lot of snow mountains there, and it is causing a lot of negative impacts with tourists coming during this December month for snow skiing and trailing these snow mountains. So there is a very unequal distribution of profit, and people and the tribal communities affected, even though some of them are benefited because they take these tourists on personal and hiking trips. Now, the challenges that are facing these mountainous regions and tourism is, we need to see these protected areas as service providers to society, either generating tourism or income for these for the livelihood, for the benefit of the government, NGOs, and non-income generating, that is providing services to the people who are living around, educational, cultural values, environmental conservation, eco-care. So all these are non-income generating. So we need to see that these mountainous areas and tourism provides both income generating as well as non-income generating non-income generating aspects. We need to compromise on it. We need to help local people participate in tourism, promoting ecotourism, as well as improving their livelihood, and at the same time conserving nature. So there has to be a good planning and good tourism management when it comes to these eco-friendly places. We need to involve stakeholders, we need to involve NGOs, we need to involve eco-tourist projects that are doing hydroelectric projects and tools for conservation of ecology for the people who are living there. So community participation is also a biggest challenge for sustainability, because it involves indigenous and ethnic communities. Now, many of us, when this pandemic began, all of us were relying on Ayurvedic sources. All of us were relying on Ayurvedic medicine and Ayurvedic, Ayush, all these. And all these medicinal herbs and properties and medicinal spas, everything is all community participation of these tribals. So involving indigenous and ethnic communities and allowing them to participate and encouraging tourism to a different level is a great challenge. And we have ample number of opportunities based on adventure, travel, mountaineering. So we need to develop these spots, these hotspots of environmental biodiversity as a cultural, environmental sensitive trekking tourism, which also provides sustainability to the communities without affecting the environment. So we've had a number of congresses on snow mountain tourism and the next year there is the World Congress on Snow and Mountain Tourism in 2022. And the proclamation of this year of mountain tourism, year of the mountains in 2002 was a great initiative to promote ecotourism, because that was the year that ecotourism was also the year, it was called as the year of tourism. So these having talks and sharing knowledge on the importance of mountains and the necessity and conserving these mountains and along with their rural communities would be a challenge and an opportunity. So we need to sustain rural development. So what do we need to do? We need to have capacity building programs for local organizations, skill-based training for local people. We need to integrate women also, because women are always harbingers of our family. We need to include women, men, raise awareness for tourists and local communities about conserving nature, about encouraging mountain products and services like, as I told, medicinal plants, timber, non-timber forest products, mountain crafts, ecotourism. All these should have a specific place in markets, in niche markets, in neighboring places. It should also reach to national levels. And we should also promote mountain farming livelihoods. And we should make people know that these are high value added activities, and they can link local communities with a higher level, secondary level users without degrading the environment. And on marketing, yes, sir. And opportunities of livelihood, we need to check the migration of these hills. There are many people who migrate from these hills for educational purpose. Their livelihood is being threatened. So they all migrate from the hills and they come and settle down in cities. So automatically their livelihood is dying out. Their occupation, the ancient heritage, occupational skills have been dying out. So we need to check that migration and try to solve their problems there. And what we need, the lessons that we need to learn is, we need to redefine our historical cultural roots based on the landscape, because India is a very ancient knowledge center. It's indigenous knowledge. It's a place where a lot of indigenous knowledge has been described even in the UNESCO. So we need to keep up that wisdom. We need to sustain that kind of wisdom, and we need to understand the world through the eyes of those who live at these places, because it is because they know the rule of the land that they stay in, and we need to understand their problems through their eyes, help them to articulate their knowledge, help them to sustain their communication skills, help them to sustain their dying tradition, which needs to be revived. And mountain does matter a lot in today's perspective, because we are seeing a lot of climate change. It's all because we are encroaching upon all these nature bound beauty, because God has given us mountains not only to safeguard us from invaders, but it is also a regulator of monsoon climate, and it is the third pole of the earth. So we need to sustain this mountain tourism possibilities so as to enhance tourism and also provide kind of sustainable development to the rural communities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shan. I think Dr. Shan has made some very pertinent points touching important issues that cuts across sectors, and it's a matter of where deep understanding is required. In-depth understanding between systems are needed. We'll get back to you shortly. I think there could be a lot of questions as well. that youngsters would like to pose to you. We'll go to the next topic, Dr. Srini, if you permit me. I do not know if the first speaker, again, I request Dr. Dipankar Nayak or Dr. Rekha Soumya, if available, to kindly make their presentation.
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. Then I invite the fourth speaker, the Nilgiri Mountain Tourism by Sharat Nambiar.
I think Sharat Nambiar had some health issues yesterday. He had returned from Chennai.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he joined.
Okay.
If Nambiar sir is online, we can. Otherwise, I think we'll have to go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So I think the first speaker who's supposed to talk to us today on using catchment area treatment plants, Mr. Dipankar Nayak is also not around. So we had two important speakers. With your permission, Dr. Srini, I would leave the floor open for discussions. We'll invite questions to the speakers. There are a lot of issues which our people would like to ask Mr. Dipankar and also to Shan. And then probably
excuse me,
we'll
sir.
all make some comments.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Alok Sinha, our Vice President, is online now.
Okay.
Now available.
Alok Sinha, Mr. Dr. Srinivasan, will you kindly invite
Yes,
Alok
sir.
Sinha?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alok Sinha is the president of North India Chapter, and we are delighted to have him on this forum to share his perspectives on OISCA as well as conservation issues. Okay, and it's a personal pleasure for me meeting you, sir, for the first time. Okay, I welcome you. Okay, and please, take the floor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arun Babu is a old colleague. Mr. Fumio Kitsuki is joining here from Tokyo. Dr. Krishnakumar, I really admire your strength you are taking forward this movement, and I wish you the best of luck for the 2022 also.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Manjunatha, the additional Principal Chief Conservator. I'm just a small, humble friend in support of OISCA. And I would like to say that this is a very important event by the UN. And what is organized today is the UN Mountain Ecosystem and Tourism Day, is to celebrate the shell, which is the Hindi word for mountain. And we find that it is today all the more important, because in the modern society where we have landed today, this the pandemic, a lot of people are now leaving their homes and going to the mountains as a work from home possibility. So there's a new rush to the mountains, and we have to see that it is conserved, and this rush doesn't create a new problem there for the people, local people. Because at the moment it is an opportunity. A lot of people can hire their homes, and there is business opportunity. But in the long run, we have to see that it is sustainable for the mountain, for the tourism, for the business. And then we have to see how do we promote renewable energy, and I think OISCA has to take some steps also on the renewable energy sector, because today we are too much, I think what we see around us, there's too much of consumerism, and we forget that we have to protect certain things by saving. There's so much of, the fossil fuel which is still being used, and these are creating a big problems in global warming. In the north, like in the south, you are affected by any movement which happens in the ocean. It affects the south and the east and the west coast. In the north, we are very much affected. Anything happens in the Himalayas, in the Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, the other three, big regions of this part of the country. And I think we would like Dr. Krishnakumar and your team to also come and visit some of these sites and see how you can advise to take it forward, because your knowledge is very strong in this sector, and I think you should use that knowledge to protect this region. And I would like to ask Arvind Babu that let's organize a small program in the coming months. I think at the moment the winter is severe in these states. Maybe after February or March we should make a tour. We can organize a OISCA program and see how do we, OISCA projects can be further of conservation and development can go hand in hand. So this is my small recommendation and my views, and I would like to compliment you again and all the members and all the friends who are joined here for the very good effort today, because mountains are, I think, we believe that all the mountains is where the gods live. So I think we have to conserve the mountain and conserve the people there and take them forward. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we do look forward to physically interacting with you whenever that opportunity permits, which you mentioned. I'm sure we'll be able to organize a fruitful, shall I say, field visit?
Yes.
Along with Dr. Krishnakumar. And if Kitsuki-san is there in India, definitely with Kitsuki-san. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm not sure if has Mr. Santosh joined, Secretary Tamil Nadu? Mr. Santosh, if he's online, he can share his views. Otherwise, Dr. KK, the forum is open for questions as well as some important insights which other OISCA members can provide, like Dr. JP or other people.
Yes.
Yes.
I think Dr. Jaiprakash, we request you to. Dr. Jaiprakash.
Sir, I'm in the midst of a class. I can just hear. I cannot talk now.
Oh, is it? Okay. Any?
Yeah, we have college today.
I'll make a quick comment. I think there was an excellent, observation from Alok Sinha. It's taken with all seriousness because he has flagged the issue of mountain ecosystems and its significance to the northern tracts. That's very important. We know how important the Himalayan regions are to the people in the north. Of course, the western and eastern Ghats also become important for people in the south, and overall mountain ecosystems are important. He has also flagged the issue of seeing sustainable governance and sustainable mountain management. People-based mountain management is what Alok Sinha has been suggesting. We definitely look forward to visiting OISCA North sometimes as a team from South, and there should also be some learning from North coming to South to see, so that good practices can be exchanged on how natural resources can be managed more efficiently. All experiences of Alok Sinha and Babu-san and Kitsuki-san, all that should be taken as a school for a better understanding of ecosystem management. Now, I leave the forum open. Any OISCA member who would like to speak, or if there are some good questions to be asked the two speakers, the forum is open now. Dr. Shuni, with your permission.
Yes, sir. In fact, I would like to specifically call upon Vaishnavi. Are you online? Vaishnavi from Sri Krishna Aditya College. Are you online? Because that I can see her name in the list. I mean, she's on this thing. I hope she hears me, because she was interested in sharing some perspectives. So I was waiting to hear a young student sharing her thoughts with us. Vaishnavi, are you online?
There are similarly a lot of agriculture students also, I understand, from the Amrita College, the college. They're all welcome because, today mountain and agriculture becomes an important issue because water again is an important issue. So anyone for your successful paddy cultivation or maybe a coconut cultivation in the lowlands, how important mountain ecosystems are, how do we really connect lowlands and highlands became important. Anyone, of course, Dr. Shini has invited Vaishnavi, but there are any other students or professors, teachers who would like to interact, you're welcome, please.
All of them. So all students are welcome.
All students, yes. We saw a few who had raised their hands as well. I saw them initially, Dr. Fini. A few of them had raised their hands. Professor Muthuraj, would you like to?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here. I'm here. Thank you for calling me, sir. Sir, I am from Coimbatore, actually. Yes, I have to thank Mr. Dipankar for looping me in this webinar meeting. It's quite useful. I'm happy that a lot of dignitaries like you are sharing thoughts and stuff like that. I would like to share a point that I always been worried and noticed. Sir, I actually worked with the Forest Department in Ooty under you when you were at DFO South as a wireless operator. For the Parsons Valley range, I used to report to Forester Ramu.
Okay.
Worrisome nature calamity in avalanche area, probably you are aware. The invasives like eucalyptus and the black wattle taking up a complete land on the mountains is now completely spoiling the catchment nature, catchment source. And if you see 3 years ago, a huge amount of land is slided down. If you can, I'll probably share the pictures what I've taken 3 years ago when we went on a bird watching trip in avalanche area, which is really a concern, sir. Avalanche, probably you know that is very famously known for our water source as well as the mushroom canopy forests. It also balances the ecosystem, but then since eucalyptus is completely invading, especially the black wattle, so that's one point, sir. And also irreversible point in mind is that near Bandipur, between Bandipur and Mudumalai, the lantana is caught with fire. The major fire accident happened, same again 2 years back, is because of the lantanas. Do we have to have something? Do we address this to current officials and to take it as a major point to get out of these invasives? Is there a way? Is what my point is. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Muthuraj. It's so nice that you remembered. In fact, I'm sorry, I really missed you out. Maybe we should be in touch. You made some very important points. At the Government of India level, as well as the state level, people are aware of invasives being a very important problem. There are all India coordinated programs now being taken up by the ICR, by the Indian Council of Forestry Research, by the MOEF and CC, and the state governments itself. So they have flagged out more than 50 invasives. Invasives include plant invasives as well as animal invasives. In certain areas, turtles that have come, the red-eared turtle, and the snails that you talk of. So such things have been listed out. And lantana or the black wattle that you're talking of, the Prosopis down in the plains, all these have been listed as invasives. And fortunately, the high courts and the Supreme Court, they're all seized to the matter, because people like you who are interested have also gone to the court and asked for redressal. The Forest Department themselves have also got schemes for the next 10 years for removal. At least I remember it has started the last 5 years, but it is not that easy an possibility to remove them, because it requires sustained action for 10 years to remove it from one site. So much so because the invasives again have a chance to come back. There is a lot of rootstock in the soil, and there is also a lot of seed. They can all come up. So it is a challenge. This is being addressed. A lot of money is also required. I think now Forest Department, particularly in protected areas, one of the main is under habitat improvement, how to see invasives are checked and controlled. There are a lot of programs I can sometimes share with you. It is interesting. What we really require is public participation also, because sometimes one or two departments just cannot. When you go in, even students should be involved in invasive removal, and that sort of a mega operation is called for today. We'll come back to you and discuss this with you. There is action program for every species as to how it can be tackled. For Prosopis, what set of action? Well, because biological invasion is really ravaging, we know that. and the natural species are all getting eliminated. Biodiversity is getting eliminated. In this era of climate change, there is also a possibility that these succeed very fast, rapidly, and take over the natural flora and fauna. So the food availability, and then today animal mitigation, human wildlife conflicts when animal come out, all that people like you and Dr. Dipankar should take this as a message, invasives as to how to control, along with tourism. Probably by the time you leave the forest, you put your some eco-tourists and help the forest department removing a small patch of invasives. That sort of a program, I think NGOs also should join, like OISCA. So we are really into biodiversity conservation through removal of invasives. That will happen, though it's a big challenge. I do agree with you. Funds, people, and also technology is required. Technology is really required for this. It's not just cutting the root stocks can again come up. Again, some other questions, please. Or,
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Dr. Srini, would you like to invite anyone in specific? Or?
Yeah, the floor is open, sir. Any voice can, Mrs. Fauzia is online. Ma'am, would you like to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, wonderful program. I have a question. What is the theme of this year, 2021 International Mountain Day? And second question is, how many land is covered by mountains? These are my two questions.
I think
the first question, the answer is this year is sustainable mountain ecosystems and tourism. That is the theme. And for the second question, almost 1/4 of the earth is covered by mountains. In fact, I would put it this way, Mr. Ghose mentioned that Aravalli, I think our Manjunatha sir mentioned that Aravalli mountains are the oldest. And I don't know whether you have come across a book. He's a historian. He's no more, 4 or 5 years back. He passed away. And the name is Abraham Mirali. It's a very, very interesting book where he combines the nature, how this subcontinent was formed, and then he goes on to how the climate and how the other things actually impact history of this land. He starts from environment and ends up on history. He's a historian. Okay, and in this thing he made Dr. Manjunatha mentioned that 3.25 million years ago, and that is the time frame which Abraham Mirali also says when the subcontinent, which was part of Africa, broke and came nudging against the Asian plate. And when the Asian plate came, the Aravallis came up first, and then of course the Himalayas, which are considered to be the youngest mountains in the world and still growing. Himalayas are supposed to be growing at around 1.5 inches every year. So I hope I have given the answers for your question as well as some more.
Yeah. Thank you, Srinivasan sir. Thank you very much.
Will Babu-san like to interact and tell us a few things?
Yes, sir. In fact, I was to invite Babu-san to share his thoughts. And as I mentioned earlier, Babu-san is the founder, father, philosopher for OISCA South India. 1985 onwards, he has been on this, and he again personifies OISCA in South India. It's our pleasure listening to Babu-san.
Yes. Babu-san not around?
Is this? All right. In the meantime, any youngster, any professor, anybody who has some points to share, you're most welcome.
I would like to, may I intervene here?
Please, sir, please. Please.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
can I?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just now, this esteemed lady had asked what was the theme, and we just said it is sustainable mountain tourism. And it describes that sustainable mountain tourism can help preserve the cultural heritage of mountain peoples and destinations. I fear, okay, that there is some strange things that are happening by departments not interacting with each other, and each department has got their specialization. So when we talk about the mountains, the forests, the ecology, the biodiversity, etc., it comes under the purview of the forest department. I was recently at this particular meeting, and it is just about 5 days ago, okay, and we were talking about guidelines, okay, guidelines for such tourism. The thing that came up over there is this, that when we are talking about heritage, it includes the indigenous people, the local people. And we've been actually indoctrinated right from day one. That is, I would say for me, it was about the winter of 1980, that the local guide is your boss. The local guide is your boss. And the factor that comes is that at least till this particular generation, okay, most of them had not gone to the schools. They've basically been backward trackers. The next generation, well, they're passing school, they're doing correspondence course, getting a degree, etc. That's different. But what was actually, okay, the warning bell over there is this, that when actually responsible administrators from the particular department that looks after promotion of tourism suddenly say that we want people with tourism degrees, with MBA, etc., to actually expedite this aspect of, leading them through the forest, educating them on biodiversity, etc. Now, what is happening is that is like uprooting the indigenous people over there and bringing in people from other places, okay, who might not have that much of in-depth knowledge onto the field over there to interpret it, to guide, okay, to show to the tourists visiting those areas. I don't think, that comes under the plans of sustainable development goals. So what happens is OISCA, and we have a professional like Mr. Richard, okay, other, wise intellectuals who have been in this program, okay, from India and abroad, ourselves, we should all put our heads together and perhaps show them, which, department, should sort of administer and monitor more to protect the indigenous people, the culture and heritage over there. So this is a warning sound, which I'm telling. I'm just talking about the experience 5 days later today. I think, retired forest officials should get the forest department to be a little away, not to be overprotective, as we also said that people really need to give vent to their expressions. They need some recognition reasons, but actually to tell the other departments concerned who are actually involved as stakeholders and service providers that perhaps what they're doing is perhaps not right. Thank you.
Yeah, noted. I think in all this program, as you rightly said, the balance is required. Maybe, we need to have people with some amount of education. Also, the grassroots people who are the locals, they also, because it's going to be a mixture of knowledge. It's going to be a mixture of experience in handling these things, because today, a lot of documentation also becomes important when it comes to ecotourism. So sometimes, we lose out on many things, on important SOPs as to how to handle certain situations. So there comes the question of people with probably with MBA, etc. So we'll have to probably mix both this group in the right way so that we take forward tourism in the appropriate way. I think that's the way Mr. Dipankar, it has to be done. And there can be some brainstorming on it to see how best this can be done. That shouldn't be a problem. Dr. Srini, you are now the timekeeper. Tell us if there aren't any speakers, then probably no questions. Then do you suggest that we...
Yes, Babu-san is back online.
Yeah.
So Babu-san can share his thoughts. And then,
yes. And
okay, Dr. Srini sir. Actually, today is very, very important day. We got lot of informations. First time OISCA South India is organizing a program on International Mountains Day. So, and one thing, there are a lot of students attended this program. So I think we take a pledge in this meeting that we will respect and protect, love mountains and save our earth. So on behalf of OISCA South India Chapter, I wish to thank Srini sir for arranging this wonderful program, Krishnakumar sir for moderating this program, Kitsuki san, Alok san, and all others. On behalf of OISCA South India Chapter, I wish to thank you all for this wonderful program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robinson. I think Tamil, I'm seeing a hand raised, Tamil.
Yes, Tamil.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hello. Yeah. Sir, my name is Tamil. I'm a research scholar from Department of Anthropology, University of Madras. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, sir.
We are able to hear you.
Yeah. Anthropology. I am doing PhD in.
Okay. Go ahead. Do you have a question or a thought to share?
Hello. So something I want to share. In Annamalai itself, they conducted one hornbill festival. There is no inclusion of the tribes in that area. They organized one festival from the Annamalai Tiger Reserve. They conducted one program like inclusion of the indigenous people in that area. So we'll focus something regarding the last speaker also mentioned that they are mountain people. They lived over their generation to generation. So that's I wish to in this. So there is in future there is some suggestion it will be needed.
Okay, I think some of your session is well taken. We try to convey this to the people out in Annamalai. Should not be a problem. I do not generally we don't miss out because in Annamalai I have worked in Annamalai for 3 years. I worked in the Nilgiris for 4 to 5 years. We are intimately in touch with all the tribals. In fact, I remember our association with tribals. We want tribals to be in all levels for not only as tourist guide, but even as a protection staff and conservation support. So we are trying to take all the tribals of Annamalai and Mudumalai area into our listing. I do not know how it has been missed out. I do not know whether you went for the Hornbill meeting, but I will definitely take it up with the people there. No issues at all. Okay. Dr. Srini?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, shall we sum it up then?
Yes, in case there are any more thoughts from the members of the audience, you are most welcome. Surendran, you would like to say something?
Sir, no, sir. As of now, no questions, sir.
All right. Okay. All right.
I'm observing a lot. I'm getting points, yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Dr. KK, then I will go ahead and I will, give a small note of thanks.
I'll just take 2 minutes only to wind up, and then you can probably add. See now, at the outset, we are very thankful that OISCA could organize such an useful, productive workshop. A lot of students had come. This is food for thought for today. See, I've been almost, we are all pretty seniors. We need to tell the future generation that mountain ecosystems and natural resources, all the ecosystems are under threat. Youngsters particularly should take note, those who have joined us today, that we need hundreds and thousands and lakhs of hands for protection. It's just not enough a few of us talk. We need brigades to really conserve. I remember having gone to the Nilgiris 1970 as a student with my uncle who took me. Going to Nilgiris was such an interesting thing. From Coimbatore, my native place, we used to go to the Nilgiris and it was so serene. I went there in 1980s. I could see some small change. I asked certain pointing questions then to my parents. Then in the 80s, 85, I had gone there as an officer. My first training and posting in the Nilgiris. Quite still nice because I had my training in Paikara, if anybody knows that place. and that's where I got trained. Then I went on to become an officer in the Nilgiris and went on to have managed both the divisions of Nilgiris, etc. Now, recently I went there. I could really see the change. So what is important is, while the local culture, the local civilization has to be protected, you should also know that a lot of outside interference is also happening in all these ecosystems. A lot of people from the outside world are also entering in for livelihoods, etc. There is no harm, but at the same time, we'll have to see that the culture of the local areas are well protected, ecology is well protected. Government on its own does wonderful things, because I tell you, the government is a very big army organization. We've had the Hill Area Development Program, the Western Ghat Development Program. They're all laudable programs from the 1975s for restoration of mountain ecosystems, for removal of invasives, planting indigenous species. But on some sides, we also had, for the sake of development, we have had plantations coming in and all the horticulture gardens, etc. But we should see that the rural culture is protected, the rural livelihoods are secured, and this is where we should all pinch in to see how best this commodification and consumerism, which I told, needs to be controlled. All the mountain ecosystems, I think, needs our hand holding. People in the plains cannot say, okay, that is something happening in the mountains. Our attitude that we go to the mountain just as tourists to go defile the ecosystem and come back is a very dangerous thing, which even I think all our climbers to the Himalayas, you just see what is happening to Everest. Everest has become a garbage and a dumping yard for anything. Leave behind the tools, the kit, the papers, the plastic, everything is left behind. It's only now some semblance of orderliness is coming in all these areas. I remember the type of tourism that we talk of today. I think Pollution Control Board has come out with a very good thing called eco-mute. Try to use bicycles and footwork. Try to walk. Even they say that a place like Chennai also, one day in a week, people should try to use, particularly students should move around in cycles, and students should walk around instead of always dependent on not even pool vehicles, but try to walk and cycle. Hills, we all know, had very simple type of tourism. All that we did in the hills was bird watching or a little bit of trekking or some small little or observation of vegetation. Today, all of us went to the Nilgiris as a student of zoology or botany for our plant botanization and for zoology understanding. We could go into the forest and see the microorganisms, the macroorganisms, birds, etc. But today, students probably need to gear. Everything is available on a smartphone. You can see the entire Shola in a phone, but nothing like going and seeing the Shola as it is lively. So this is where probably people like Mr. Dipankar, Madam Shan, they will all have to come in and see how best they handle with the government. Government on one side, they have laudable programs, but these programs also need to be carried forward through the support of people, NGOs like OISCA and all of us. Collectively, we have to stand responsible to the mountain ecosystem. That's the message for today. Create awareness in the minds of the youngsters, create a brigade, make a movement so that mountain ecosystems in the country are protected for posterity and for all the future generations. Sustainable Development Goal 15 itself is so important. And Sustainable Development Goal 15, life on land. When you talk of life on land, there can be no life on land without mountains. 14, which talks of life below water. But life on land is so important. All our hunger, poverty that we talk of, zero hunger, or no poverty, our education, our equity, all the 17 sustainable goals can become a reality only if you take forward such good missions. That is how OISCA decided to organize this International Mountain World today, bring in a small group of people. I'm very sure Dr. Srini will carefully bring out good proceedings so that this can be shared with everybody, and we will definitely try to send it across the views that got generated here. Some excellent thoughts have come as to how to take locals along, and all these words that came in will be recorded, the proceedings will be brought out so that it will be shared and put on the OISCA platform so that a lot of us benefit. I only wish to say that unless we handhold with the government, work together, ecosystems cannot be protected. May it be the watersheds, may it be the lakes, ponds, etc. Yesterday we saw that Palakkal, a very good eco-awareness program, has been initiated there. So what we need to do is how do we really take it forward? Every ecosystem needs a lot of understanding, and this is where we all need to work together. It was a wonderful opportunity, Dr. Srini. Thank you very much, and let us continue doing this monitoring and keep our ears and eyes open on the ecosystems around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. KK. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege now to say thank you. But before saying thank you, I would like to just mention a couple of points. The very idea of this nation, India, okay, or the subcontinent, our Kitsuki San, when he talked about the spiritual quality of Mount Fuji. When it comes to India and the subcontinent, the very idea of this nation called India does not exist without mountains. Because every day in our temples, every day in our prayers, do you know what we say? We say, Bharatavarshe Bharatakande Meroho Dakshine Parsve. The land that lies to the south of Meru Mountains, that means Himalayas. Okay, the very idea of India is defined with reference to mountains. And then again, we being in Tamil Nadu, I would like to just quote one Tamil listing also. It says, Neerindu Amayadu Ulagam. The world cannot exist without water. And where does this water come from? It comes from mountains. Okay. So, whether you want to define your identity as a country, you need to go back to the mountains. Whether you want to live as a world, you have to go back to the mountains again. Okay, so that is the significance of mountains. All the eminent speakers have adequately, highlighted the points that we need to carry in our hearts and in our minds. My humble request to all of you, particularly the young friends, is to first of all maximize that awareness within yourself and please spread it to everyone. Okay, so saying, it is my duty now to thank our dear Kitsuki-san, our Babu-san, and Dr. Krishnakumar, Mr. Manjunatha, Dipankar Ghose, Dr. Eugene, and all our OISCA friends and the young students who have joined today to help us observe, commemorate the International Mountain Day and remind ourselves that we have a duty towards mountains. It's not just for enjoyment. Okay, we have a duty towards mountains, and I'm sure that all of us will carry that thought with us. So saying, I would like to thank you for joining us and sharing your valuable thoughts and your time. Okay, and I'm sure OISCA will continue to work with people, with youngsters, with colleges, students to promote this awareness and carry out sustainable activities continuously in the future. Thank you very much. God bless us all.
Thank you very much. One more thing. Can I talk?
Please.
It's very important that this is the international gathering, and I hope your discussions, your results of the meeting today will be spread to other countries as well, because strengthening your education, your young people will influence other people in other countries. Thank you very much.
We'll do that, Kitsuki-san. We'll do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wonderful. So nice it all came. Dipankarji, thank you that you could be with us, Mr. Mohanraj and Mr. Mutraj and all others. So nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Babu-san, thank you.